Okay, here's something nobody really talks about going into this 2026 FIFA World Cup. A lot of fans flying into America this summer weren't just nervous about jet lag or finding their stadium. Honestly, a lot of them were genuinely unsure how they'd even be treated once they landed. Trust in America has dropped pretty sharply across Europe over the past few years, and a bunch of visiting fans packed for this tournament half expecting some real friction, maybe even some hostility. And then they landed, and within days, the whole story flipped completely. A Scottish fan, part of what they call the Tartan Army, ends up with the mayor of Boston signing an official friendship agreement with his hometown. An Algerian fan who'd never even heard of a small Kansas college town drives back weeks later just to say thank you in person. So today we're walking through exactly what happened when a bunch of European and African fans braced for one version of America and ended up finding a completely different one waiting for them. Alright, here's one for you. Over in Lawrence, Kansas, a local restaurant owner actually changed his menu specifically to welcome visiting Algerian fans. What do you think he added? Drop your guess below. Is it A, vegetarian options, B, halal options, C, a full Algerian menu section, or D, free meals for anyone wearing an Algeria jersey? Go ahead and comment your answer now, because honestly, the real one says a lot about how far this town went to make their guests feel at home. So here's the backdrop nobody really puts in the highlight reels. According to the European Council on Foreign Relations, only about 11% of Europeans now view the United States as an ally, and a quarter of them actually see it more as a rival or even an adversary at this point. That's a pretty significant shift, and honestly, it happened fast. So when over 1 million international visitors started booking flights here for this FIFA World Cup, plenty of them weren't just thinking about football. They were thinking about immigration headlines, political tension, and a country that's felt, at least from the outside, a lot less welcoming than it used to. A Belgian fan named Francis Jacobs, who traveled to Seattle for a match, admitted to the Globe and Mail that he made the trip with some real trepidation. In his own words, in the back of his mind he kept thinking, what's actually going on over there? That's not someone worried about ticket prices or parking. That's a guy genuinely unsure what kind of welcome he was walking into. And he definitely wasn't the only one carrying that feeling onto the plane. Here's where it gets interesting though, because almost immediately, that expectation started running headfirst into reality. Marina Debuchy, a British entrepreneur who moved to California after years of wanting to live in the US, told ABC News that a lot of the reactions she's been seeing from World Cup visitors basically mirror what she felt when she first got here. She pushed back pretty directly on the idea that Americans are somehow fake or just performatively friendly. In her words, she thinks Americans are just genuinely nice and friendly, period. Egyptian TikTok personality Alicia Iannacone told them something similar, saying she likes the friendliness, she likes the good vibe. And these weren't just a couple of cherry-picked quotes either. Dr. Rachel Fu, who chairs the Department of Tourism, Hospitality, and Event Management at the University of Florida, explained to ABC News why these little moments hit so hard for visitors. She pointed out that what Americans consider totally ordinary, free ice water, a refillable soda, a cheerful grocery store clerk, can be a genuinely fascinating discovery for someone visiting from Scotland or Brazil or Japan. And she made a point that has honestly stuck with me. Research shows people remember people more than they remember places. A visitor might forget the final score of a match. They're not going to forget the stranger who helped them find the train station. So you've got fans landing with real politically shaped anxiety about how they'd be received, and then almost immediately running into small, human moments that didn't match that anxiety at all. That gap, honestly, is the whole engine of this story. Now let's talk about Boston, because what happened there might be the clearest example of this entire thing. It started small. A Boston area resident named Mike Morrison posted a video on X of his new neighbors, a group of Scottish fans who'd just moved into the Airbnb across the street. It was 6:30 in the morning, and one of them was standing outside in a kilt, playing the bagpipes. Morrison wasn't even complaining. He actually said the whole thing lasted about a minute and wasn't a problem at all. He just thought it was funny enough to share. That video ended up getting over 9 million views. But here's where it gets good. Morrison decided to return the favor. He grilled the Scottish fans' sausages for breakfast that Saturday morning while they gave him another wake-up performance, this time playing Amazing Grace on the bagpipes. He posted about it, joking that he hoped Europeans like sausages, and the internet completely ran with it. One commenter wrote that Morrison had personally done more for America's international reputation in one weekend than most politicians manage in an entire career. Not long after, a different Scottish fan reached out to Morrison and offered him a ticket to an upcoming Scotland match, which he happily accepted. And honestly, the story just kept growing from there. Throughout their time in Boston, Scottish fans, the Tartan Army, basically took over the city. They'd already made the trip over for Scotland's opening group stage fixture, and the energy they brought to Gillette Stadium down in Foxborough had the whole region buzzing. They marched to Fenway Park in full kilts and bagpipes for a Scottish Heritage Night with the Red Sox, an event the team's own ticket strategy director called unlike anything they'd ever hosted. Local residents told CBS Boston things like, "You guys are really welcoming. It's kind of like feeling at home, and people just stop you in the street to talk." One Boston Chamber of Commerce executive said the Tartan Army brought more visitors to the city for a single event than any country ever had before, calling the impact immense and electrifying. And then it became official. Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, wearing a Scotland jersey, signed a formal letter of intent inside a packed pub establishing a twinning agreement between Boston and Glasgow, a formal sister city-style partnership that nobody had even imagined a few weeks earlier. A wake-up call with bagpipes turned into an actual city government partnership in about a week. Genuinely wild. If Boston shows you what happens in a major city, Lawrence, Kansas shows you what happens when a tiny college town gets the same opportunity, and honestly, this might be the most touching story out of the whole tournament. Algeria's national team set up their base camp in Lawrence, training out of Rock Chalk Park, the University of Kansas athletic facility in a town built around KU that most casual sports fans, and frankly most Algerians, had probably never heard of before this summer. They made the short trip up to Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City for their matches, but Lawrence was home base, and that distinction ended up meaning everything. Early on, a Lawrence resident posted a simple, heartfelt video that ended up going viral. He just looked into the camera and said, "I want to say thank you to Team Algeria for choosing our hometown Lawrence, Kansas, to come here. Welcome to the United States. Welcome to Kansas." That clip made its way across the internet and eventually reached Algerian fans both back home and abroad. Two brothers, Hanafi and Benali Abbas, who actually live in Minneapolis, drove all the way to Lawrence specifically because they'd seen the welcome go viral and wanted to be part of it. Hanafi told a local news crew that most people don't even know Algeria exists, and honestly, it's the same the other way around. They'd never heard of Lawrence either until their national team showed up there. He said the people were incredibly welcoming, and that the town basically adopted the entire Algerian team. And the town really leaned all the way in. Lawrence's mayor, Brad Finkeldine, told reporters the Algerian fans brought their warmth, their energy, and their excitement, and that the city was genuinely thrilled to have them. A local restaurant owner named Subama Badachan, who owns the Asian fusion spot Zen Zero, modified his entire menu to include halal options specifically for visiting fans, and even coordinated with Algerian fan pages on Facebook to offer dining discounts. The University of Kansas soccer coach personally met with the president of the Algerian Football Federation and gave him a Jayhawks jersey. And here's the part that really completes the whole story. After everything, after the welcome video went viral, after all the warmth and the connections made, the Abbas brothers didn't just stay in Lawrence once. They came back, specifically to say thank you in person to a town that had given two strangers from Minneapolis a reason to fall in love with a place they'd never even planned on visiting. Here's what really ties all of this together, and honestly, it's the part that surprised me most while putting this video together. None of these moments were organized by FIFA, a tourism board, or any official campaign. Nobody scripted Mike Morrison grilling sausages for a bunch of strangers in kilts. Nobody told Lawrence, Kansas, to fall in love with a North African soccer team most residents couldn't have placed on a map a month earlier. These were just regular people responding to other regular people, completely unprompted, at a moment when, according to actual polling data, trust between these countries was supposedly at a real low point. A Belgian fan who admitted he was nervous about how he'd be received ended up going home talking about how friendly everyone was. A Boston neighborhood ended up with their mayor signing an international city partnership because one guy played bagpipes outside an Airbnb. A Kansas college town ended up so beloved by Algerian fans that some of them drove hundreds of miles back just to say thank you a second time. If you described any of this to someone 6 months ago, before the tournament even started, it honestly would have sounded made up. All right, let's go back to the question from earlier. What did that Lawrence restaurant owner actually add to his menu for Algerian fans? The answer is B, halal options. Subama Badachan, who owns the Asian fusion restaurant Zen Zero, modified his menu specifically so visiting Algerian fans could eat there comfortably, and he even coordinated with Algerian fan pages on Facebook to offer dining discounts. That's just a small business owner in a college town most of the world had never heard of, going out of his way to make total strangers feel like they belonged. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you seen any hospitality moments from this World Cup that genuinely surprised you? And if you've ever hosted international visitors yourself, did any of these stories feel familiar? Drop it in the comments because honestly, these are some of my favorite stories to cover on this channel. If you liked this one, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because there's a lot more of this coming as the tournament heads toward its final stretch. Whether you call it football or football, the game always brings us together. I'll see you on the next one.